half hour from 3 different locum tenens companies. And Monday is always a day. I guess they wake up and they have their list and they have to go through it.
So folks who may be joining in, this is the Change Physician podcast, and this is a behind the scenes snippet of what we discuss before our true episodes here with Dr. Lamia Boric, who is a oncologist whose phone is ringing off the hook with need, which led to discussion of why is it so difficult for health systems to retain their docs so they don't pay obscene amounts of money trying to replace their staff over and over and over again. But anyway, there's some interesting insights in there.
So Kevin, what should we focus today on with Lamia?
With Lamia, well, we had some plans here, and as always, our plans get a little derailed with our conversations about that's one of the fun things about medicine is there's so much chaos everywhere. It becomes pretty easy just to talk about all sorts of crazy things. So I'll put it back to our wonderful and fabulous guest here, Dr. Lamia Boric, who's returning. You saw her story in her physician journey story of transformation, with her diverse interests in her career of locum tenens and how that has sort of broadened and provided her lots of different opportunities. So Lamia, what would you like to tell or talk about today? Now that we've heard your sort of journey, what's important to you, or where do you think other doctors need to know about?
Oh, wow. That's a really broad question.
No pressure at all.
Well, okay. Well, let me start with the big picture. I think we all need to do a better job of connecting with ourselves, connecting with each other, and connecting with the environment. Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot of people are just unhealthy. A lot of places I go, I see physicians who are so burnt out. They look like they themselves are on chemotherapy and not the patients they're treating, from oncology standpoint. And I just don't think that full-time, focusing on oncology, but I think it goes for all of the medicine, full-time permanent positions do not allow for having a young family and having a healthy lifestyle and having friends and then even less hobbies. You can choose one maybe, or yet you have to heavily compromise on your pay or a place where you live. So you just can't have everything. And I think there are ways around that. And I found a way to be happier through locum tenens work. And initially I thought this was going to be just 6 months sort of until I figure out a different way, maybe a practice in a small town where I can have more time off, part-time. But then once I started doing this, every month I look at something, there is a proof to me that this is going to work out in the long run, probably, because I have gotten so used to having time for myself, being healthy, scheduling my work around my vacations, that it's really hard to go back. I don't think you can if you actually reap the benefits of this approach to practicing.
Yeah.
Well, and with that though, you've also been very flexible, because just to be kind of clear here, and not to get into large family details, you have a young family. So people, what does that mean? How old is your son? He's like 3.
Aww.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a young family, right? And so it's not like you're somebody who the kids are off to college and now you're running around doing locums.
Right.
You are doing this with your family, with a young child, where a lot of people say, well, I can't do locums.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious about that with flexibility, because when we're saying, okay, you cannot, we'll make a statement, you cannot work full time, have a young family, have a healthy lifestyle, have healthy hobbies, have healthy friendships. You can pick one of all of those things, maybe.
Yes, this one, maybe.
And that kind of goes way back when I heard someone say this thing was like, you can pick either your location, your lifestyle, or your income. And they actually said, well, you can pick 2 of those and you can maybe pull them together. But how then are you, like, what would you recommend? Because we know, unfortunately, a lot of women physicians bear the preponderance of childcare. And that's a thing that they're wrestling with over and over again. How do you do that balancing? You kind of touched on it here, but how do you do that balancing act with locums? And how have you designed that locums lifestyle in such a way that preserves income, preserves your family, preserves your health?
So let me start by saying that because I have a lot more time, I started reading again. A lot of us don't have time to read. And I recently was recommended this book called Parenting Inside Out. And it talks about raising happy, smart, well-attached children. And, you know, the whole book could be summarized basically saying you have to be there for your child. The first 18 months are especially important. So if you are not there to reflect back, to soothe, to just be present, you know, the consequences down the stream long term in terms of mental health and physical health are amazing. I mean, there are studies. I don't know why we are thinking we're treating patients when we're actually causing a lot of illness, but not being present for our children. So I became very passionate about this. And with locum tenens work, I get so much time off that I can actually be there for my child, especially in the first 3 years of life, where I took those big breaks. So I'm thinking, if you're in permanent practice in a full-time job, how present are you for your child? Are you there? Are you present on the weekends when you have a weekend off, when you're emotionally drained, or evenings? You know, that child may see you for a couple of hours a day. So that's the baseline. Versus locum tenens, where I would take my family with me actually to these assignments. My husband doesn't work. One time my parents came with me, and I have a physician friend who brought an au pair, like a nanny, to come with her to the assignment for a small child. For shorter trips, for about a week, I sometimes go by myself, and that I try to avoid, as he's, you know, still not understanding, but technology helps us connect. I actually met a physician, and this is another option which I'm going to consider in the future. I met a physician who's done this for 15 years. And what she does is she will just move to a place for 9 months at a time. And her kids have gone to schools from Alabama to Alaska to Maine. And she said that one of the girls is now in college, and she's doing like international diplomacy, because she has seen so many different political and cultural views throughout the country that she is so adapted at talking to different people. So usually, you know, when you think of locum assignments, it's like 3 weeks, 1 month, maybe 3 months at most. But there are assignments, most actually are looking for long-term coverage. And so you can go somewhere for an entire school year. And the beauty of it is that you can craft your schedule. You can say, I want every third week off. And then you have time for your children. And when you're working, actually, you're not working as hard for a number of reasons that I can explain later. In most of my assignments, I actually worked about 30% less in terms of patient volume. And then they put you 10 minutes away from the hospital, so your commute is minimal. I mean, the amount of time, I think I get about 2 to 3 hours more per day when I'm at an assignment. I actually connect with my family, and then a woman comes and cleans the room, and I don't even have to pay her, you know? And so you know, if you don't mind the travel, you know, the pandemic makes it a little bit difficult, but it actually is not so stressful.
I was just thinking about how awesome that people, as long as you're adaptable, you don't have, you know, especially if she's moving, like literally moving completely and not having a home as a base.
Well, this person is actually living overseas, interestingly.
Oh, okay.
And she's not moving her whole furniture and everything, but just, you know, a couple of suitcases. Which really, what do you need to, you know, you need some professional clothing and some gear, I guess, for play. But if that's okay, then she takes 6 months off at a time. And then maybe does a little bit on her own, and then goes back again with her family. I mean, or did, now they're older. But that's a solution for somebody who wants to go with their family. She made it seem so easy. But honestly, once I started doing it, it isn't that hard. Like, for example, this summer, I'm going to be with my son, hopefully back in Oregon, maybe. And I'm going to put him in daycare. And, you know, for the time, a little bit of time, I might be alone. So I'm not going to have anyone with me. So it's all doable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I guess a lot of times people think when they go into practice and they're out on their own, that they're going to create this like reputation and have to build a practice. And that's a lot of work. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just, it's more of thinking of sticking your roots in one place. And it's amazing how if you can unlatch yourself from that kind of mindset that your work has to create an established practice. And if you're thinking lifestyle, in fact, I just gave some advice to a friend of mine who's a nurse and is debating on $5 more per hour versus, you know, and I said, okay, let's just kind of dismiss the $5 extra per hour and think, what is most important to you for someone who likes doing a lot of things? Is the lifestyle important, or is it the money? Because the fixation on money isn't necessarily going to drive the kind of life you want if you don't have the freedom to explore all these other things. That exactly what you're talking about. It gives you time for yourself, and just to come full circle, you're talking about what's the big picture. And
that I did go through that exercise. I wrote down, what are the things that make me happiest? And there were about 20 things, and very few had to do with money.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that I needed money for, it was orders of magnitude less money than I was making. Mm-hmm. And so there I was accumulating this income and thinking, well, I'm young now. These are the moments that are going to be irretrievable. I mean, my child is growing. I want to see him grow. I want to, I gained 55 pounds with pregnancy. I needed to get some fitness. I was not happy with being a moderately obese, dyspneic, middle-aged oncologist, and an aging oncologist who can't go 4 flights of stairs because she doesn't exercise. I wasn't going to accept that. So those things have nothing to do with money. They have to do with time. So I think what I'm doing is buying time.
Yeah.
Which is an irretrievable resource. Like you think about everything else that you can pay, invest, or do whatever, but the one thing that is equal for everybody is time. Like it doesn't matter how much income you have or how little. We have the same 24 hours. We have the same 365.25 days a year. And I do think we forget that, because as physicians, we have what we have invested in, or I should say what we have paid for our careers in, is time.
Yeah.
We talk about the financial debt that we go into, but little do we talk about the time investment that we have.
Yeah.
And that is time we will never, ever, ever make up again. So being cognizant of creating a life really early on that returns that irretrievable chunk, that piece of which is really most important, I do think is really key.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking is that, I almost feel like, yes, we've kind of gotten used to giving up our time and the training, but we've been so trained and brainwashed into thinking, and this sense of like, it's the sacrifice we're supposed to do all the time for the people in need. And it kind of almost has overly taken advantage of people that want to help people. But sometimes it's gotten to the point where a lot of people can't say no, and they accept it. They accept the fact that they have no health or fitness. And so many of us in this profession just keep going because we don't know any other way. I mean, the whole reason behind this podcast is to recognize that you can create a different mindset and skill set to realize that to actually have a healthy life, that you have time for yourself and the things you love, and that it's okay to love things outside of work.
And we have normalized this culture of working more than we have to or need to. There always seems to be an emergency. It's not an emergency. I don't work in the ER, but every day there is more work, as if you just need to get all these things done, as if somebody's just actively dying right in front of you. Like there's this culture of you need to work. And it's unfortunate that the physicians who are doing locum tenens, older physicians, I've met a few people who had a health problem, either a heart attack or a terrible divorce or some psychological issue where they just had to slow down. So we do give so much that it actually is detriment to our health. And then some of us get reminders. I think very few people decide to do it because they are so aware of their health and the family's health. Like me, I didn't have any particular health reason to do it. I just realized this is unhealthy. And if I continue doing this for the next 20 years, this is going to take its toll. And yes, I could have gone to some very rural place in need and had a nice, part-time practice, but I also didn't want to compromise too much on where I live. And now I get to live next to my parents and my sister, and my child gets to spend time with cousins. And so it's, I would like to have a permanent practice. And I mean, there's some nice things about that too, but again, it's the way we're doing it is not compatible
Mm-hmm.
with a healthy lifestyle and a young family.
Yeah.
Well, but to do that, again, you have to be very flexible, right? So these themes that keep coming up, being aware, first of all, that there's an issue and there's a problem, that there's things that you don't want to compromise on, or things that are actually important to your life that you may not be getting. And then being flexible in that approach. I think one of the frustration things that I have is I see people and they're like, oh, I want this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, well, you can have this and this and this. Like, but you just need to, what's important to you, and decide what that is. Well, and then you kind of go through, well, is this important? Well, I can't give up that. I can't give up my house. I can't give up the location. I can't do this. I can't give up I got to buy a new car or lease a new car every 2 years. It's like, well, those are all choices that you're making. And
depends on
just
the kind of car.
well, I mean, people do that, but I guess the question, is just being, and I don't even, as long as you're consciously making those choices. So if you think that a brand new, leasing a few cars every 2 years, that you have to have the massive house, that you have to live in San Diego, that you want these things, at least be conscious of those decisions, that those are things you are choosing to do in order to practice medicine in the place that you are. And it's not being forced, or you're being trapped by that. From a psychological standpoint, opting into an active choice, even if it's not necessarily an ideal situation, is still different than feeling like you're trapped in control, because you're either unaware or unwilling to accept that all those things are actually in your sphere of control.
Yes.
So,
yes. Well, since you're talking about money and time, let me mention something that some people might find very interesting. So as you know, I have a very sort of minimalistic lifestyle, which really helped me get to explore this opportunity. But and I have an accountant, and I don't really get into the details, but I was very surprised by the amount of money that I saved in taxes doing independent contractor work compared to being in a full-time practice. I will tell you that I can make as much, if I was in a hospital employed position, I can work 9 months as a locum tenens, and I make as much as I would make in a year. So, if you negotiate your daily rate really well, and the tax breaks that you get are enormous. So 30 to up to 50% more per day. And the other part of the issue is, when you're working for the locum tenens companies, they don't have the incentive to work you beyond certain hours. So for every hour beyond 8 hours, you get overtime. And that overtime is costing hospitals and institutions that utilize locum tenens physicians in a disproportionate amount, a lot more than what we get. And they don't have the incentive to overwork you. Mm-hmm. And so you're in a situation where you're working less. You're somehow protected by this locum tenens company in a way. Mm-hmm. And you get enormous amount of money in overtime if you do stay. And then you get the tax breaks. And you usually don't get a full schedule because they understand that these patients are all new to you. So I've never worked less in my entire life, and I've never made more per hour. And it just, in terms of time, you're talking a house. You could have a big house doing locum tenens. You could actually, if you wanted to work locum tenens all year, you could make 30 to 50% more than if you were now in some standard hospital employee position. Mm-hmm. If your kids are grown and you're really into money, this is the way to go. The only problem is it's a little bit uncertain. So you may have an assignment that, falls through, and then you have a month off, and then you're trying to, but that hasn't happened to me yet. In fact, what's happening is that I'm switching from one assignment to the next because the need is better and the money is better and it's closer to home. And in fact, I was just doing a 2-month assignment here in Phoenix, and then another one opened up across the street closer to my home, like 15 minutes from here. So I actually quit with these guys, 40 minutes from here, and I'm starting over there. And it's the beauty of 30-day notice. Yes. And there's no non-compete. So I'm home and I'm doing locum, and it's actually, I don't know, if you want to have the big house and the lifestyle, you can actually.
Yeah. And the fact that, this idea of keeping things in perspective, and people that maybe they're not sure about the whole full-time position, like, maybe it really doesn't resonate with them until they experience it. For those listening, I think it's good to just remember that, you know, whether it's locums or some other part-time or something that frees up your time, that allows you to maybe create, like you said, Lamia, that you'd like to maybe have your own practice. It can afford you the extra space and time to curate that kind of practice and still be making money while you're building up your own practice and doing it in a way that it just resonates with you and your values, and you create something different than what everyone else is offering out there as an employer.
Right.
So anyway, I thought it was good for maybe us to just, you know, give some ideas of not only the positive, what you just said there is just there's so much opportunity and money in it, but
Yes.
there's also opportunity for flexibility as well.
Yeah. I should say that if somebody's thinking about locum tenens, I think it would be very hard to do that straight out of residency or fellowship. You are entering very complex situations with patients that might have partial records, maybe 5 locum tenens before you didn't record everything. You have to know your stuff. I got into it after 8 years in practice. I know I look young, but I'm 44 actually. Maybe all that exercise paid off over time. You have to know your stuff, and you also have to be psychologically really centered, because you're coming to places that are very frustrated. Patients are frustrated, staff is frustrated, and they can somehow, you can be a kind of like a screen on which all this is reflected. And that's not good, because the patient's frustration, oh, you're my third doctor, all of a sudden you're the bad guy. And so you have to know how to navigate through that. And then on top of it, you have to be really good at what you do. So if you're not experienced, it's going to be very challenging. So what I did 4 years in a very busy private practice. And that was invaluable experience to get the efficiency down, to figure out how things are done in the real world, because academia is a completely different place. And then you become so skilled in all of these different places, hospital, private, academic, and then you know exactly how each functions. And it's like you grow a different lobe of your brain. So you're very flexible. And I've met so many people from so many different backgrounds, political, different environmental views. And you know what? I've started understanding a lot of different people. So if you are interested in your own personal growth and communication skills, and do it, but don't get into it out of fellowship, because it's a little bit scary. You can even maybe get in trouble with missed stuff, and who's going to follow up on what, and how do so have some experience and some background before diving into this.
Yeah, that's some good guidance. Any other questions, Kevin?
Well, I was just going to comment on that. I think that's an excellent point, because the other thing is these endpoints, right? So people feel like you're in this terminal place, and oh my gosh, I did all this training and I'm stuck here. And so maybe you're a new grad and you're coming out and you're a really busy, overwhelming practice. What you're basically saying is, hey, look at this as a learning opportunity, like a fellowship beyond fellowship or a residency beyond residency. Set your time, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, that you say, well, I can tolerate, because we as humans, you can tolerate things with an endpoint, as long as you know there's a defining endpoint, right? Mm-hmm. And I've talked to you about this actually offline. It's like, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this location. I'm only going to be here for whatever, 2 months or whatever, but you have a defined endpoint.
Huh? The big advice is don't buy a house when you start your new practice.
Yeah. Oh, that's a huge one. Yes, absolutely. Speaking from experience. But I like that idea, because again, it becomes this awareness piece where wherever you are in the stage, it's just create that endpoint of, this is what I'm going to work toward, this particular date at this time. In this, in the interim, I'm going to learn what I can. I know this place sucks, or I know this is overwhelming, or I know I don't have the time, or whatever. But there are things that you can pull out of it. And if you have that defined endpoint, again, what you choose to do when you get there it can change, but it provides a different mindset of how to tolerate, and feeling less like, I can't do anything. The worst thing you can do is to trap somebody, or perceived trapped, or perceived helplessness, like the worst thing anybody can go through.
Exactly. There are other options, and they can work out really well.
Yeah. So I guess that's all I have for now. Although there's a whole topic there. You made me think of like what I call mercenary medicine. It has It sounds horrible, but it's actually, you know, I was thinking this thing back in the Middle Ages when they had these mercenary companies, and it's like the one city would hire them, and it's like, oh wait, the city across the street wants to hire for me for more. Okay.
But you know, you can form long-term relationships, and you can actually go to the same place multiple times, which is what I've gone twice to 3 different locations. And it's only mercenary when you go in for 2 weeks and you ask for like $4,000 or $5,000 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I know someone who's done that. So because they need you tomorrow and you have the license and you're ready to hit the ground running, and then you ask for, you know, some enormous sum on per day, and that's, people do that. That's hard. But what I do, I go somewhere for 6 months. I actually form a relationship, and I see people for follow-ups. So, and then they hire a permanent physician, and then I go to some other place. But it does feel a little bit softer than that, what you describe.
Well, I knew the word sounded bad, but but on the flip side, here's the other thing. I'm gonna put this because I know I would wrestle with this if it was me, like if with that kind of ethical, but although it's not really ethical decision. If you say, and someone says, we need you tomorrow, and you say, well, I want $4,000 a day or $5,000 a day. And as many of us physicians, I have to, right? These are people in need. I need them. But realistically speaking, it's the person whose ultimate control is the hospital or the practice environment that's in there, and recognizing that value exchange, if they want that and if they need it and they're going to pay it. Cognitive Kevin, who's can separate the emotional side because I'm not directly involved in that, say, you know what, that's fair. You know, that's fair.
When I found out the sums that the hospitals are paying for the locum physicians, we get paid a fraction of what they pay for us. So what we make for the hospitals on the daily basis must be even greater than that. These sums are staggering. They're in the thousands of dollars per week, like 30, 40,000. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've heard. And so that's why it makes it so easy to make that kind of money, even in the short run, or they may be actually breaking even, but at least they're keeping you, keeping the flow of things going. So I don't, given how much money is exchanging hands above all of this, I really don't feel bad about, we don't really make as much, given that we actually run the show. Without physicians, none of this would exist. And so it took me a while, but I finally got to a point where I am not apologizing for how much I'm asking for. And why do we think we need to work for free in a system that charges us hundreds of thousands for medical education, that can sue us for millions? It's just how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and from being a good human standpoint, it's like, okay, well, if you do it for less, are they as the patients ultimately getting less? I mean, meaning, is their premium going down? Are they billing them less? Like, who else is willing to take a cut?
Exactly.
They're not willing to take a cut. So anyway,
but it's easier to gently leverage those amounts as you develop a relationship with the people you helped out. The more you recognize that they enjoy being around you or they appreciate you, it makes it easier for people that may have a little hesitation. I can say that from personal experience. It's easier to ask for more once you know they value you.
And be of value.
You have to feel out how much your specialty is charging, and then you don't want to be at the top, because they're gonna replace you with someone who charges less. So you want to be close to the top, above average. And I'll tell you, the range is enormous. There are people who are making 30% of the average, and then there are people who are asking for a lot more. And I've seen there's it's like a black box. Nobody knows how much anyone's making, but you have to talk to people and kind of get a sense for what's reasonable, because you can't ask for unreasonable sums for these stable positions in good locations.
Right. Totally agree.
It's like buying a house, like buying a car. You just have to know how this works. And if you want to go work somewhere for free, and maybe someday we'll get to that point where we live in a utopian society where that is fine. And I would love that, but that's not a reality.
Yeah. Not everyone's willing to sign up for that all at once. So
no. I don't think we're ready as a human race for any kind of experiment like that.
No. it's not with what's been going on lately.
I guess we tried it already. It was called the. Anyway, I'm not gonna get back into my past.
Oh, well, I want to thank you, Lamia, for joining us on the Change Physician podcast today. Again, as a returning guest, we loved the first one, so of course we had to have you back. And for those listening out there, if you don't know what the Change Physician is, and you just happen to hear this or see this on a Facebook post, feel free to check out thechangephysician.com and learn more about our wanting to help people with strategies and mindsets just to live a more fulfilling life and career. And I'm here with Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, who's my co-host. I forgot to mention him on the way out, but of course, we'll look forward to you on the next episode, and join us for any of our Monday motivations or other Facebook Lives. Take care.
Thank you very much.